Hello everyone, I'm Pastor Dewey Miller, one of the directors of Kuandaa International, and I want to share with you some thoughts today specifically about what to expect when you travel with one of our teams to Africa. I want to talk in several different categories, and probably it will raise some questions for you. I'm going to try to give you as much information as I can, but feel free to mark down your questions and share them with myself or Chad Yoder or one of our other travelers who are part of your team. We want you to be comfortable and prepared for the exciting time we're going to have together. I've got several categories that I want to share a few things with you about. The first category has to do with food, which, if you can tell, you should be able to tell by looking at me, that's pretty important. The main thing that we want to suggest is that never at any time should you eat any raw food that is served to you. Make sure that you only eat cooked foods. Bacterias that are present in Uganda, even if vegetables or produce has been cleaned well, there are bacterias in the water, and for the same reason we encourage you, don't drink water anywhere but out of a bottle, out of one of our bottles that we'll provide for you. Be careful. We want to keep you from getting sick. All our meals will be taken either in restaurants or hotels where we're sure that the food will be safe. We also will have, when we're out on training sites or team settings, the food will all be prepared specifically for our sensitive American digestive systems. So be sure and be careful what you eat. Most of our meals will consist of chicken, fish, pork, sometimes some beef. Be prepared, however, that meat that we get in Africa will not be the same type of meat. I don't want to say quality of meat, but it's sort of a different quality that we're used to eating here in America. We'll also get Irish potatoes. Those are basically just boiled potatoes. Matoke, which is a type of banana that is mashed, boiled and mashed. Rice, spices, and cooking oil. Basically, the food, flavor-wise, is pretty bland compared to what you would normally expect. I also want to talk to you about safety. For the most part, you're going to be very safe. We are going to stay in hotels and inns with security, with a pretty stringent entrance and exit requirements. You'll be surprised at how much more careful folks are in Africa where security is concerned. We also want to make sure that you're careful about your own personal items, especially valuable items. We want to encourage you not to bring a lot of money, and I'm sure you'll get that in another one of these videos, but also don't bring valuable articles, whether they be clothing or jewelry or electronics. Bring what you need, but keep close tabs on everything. Just be sure that you keep an eye on everything that you bring. Now I want to talk to you about relationships and communicating with people in on the ground in Africa. First of all, know that people are going to want to develop a relationship with you. They're going to want to communicate with you when you return home. Be careful about that. It will not take long for people to begin soliciting donations from you. You may even receive phone calls in the middle of the night from someone in Africa. Just be cautious. I don't want to prevent you from having a relationship, a ministry connection with someone from Africa, but I want you to be aware going in what that might entail. At the same time, I want to talk to you about gifts and gift giving. Gifts, a natural expression of friendship in a relationship is often giving gifts. One of the requirements that we have, or suggestions that we have, is that you should always consult with one of your team leaders or one of our Ugandan directors before making large gifts especially. And in fact, it's probably a good idea to take gifts and give them through the board and the structure of Kuandaa International. That will just help you in the future as time goes on to not develop a relationship where someone might be dependent on you and may solicit from you funds over and over again. Now, we do have a policy regarding gift giving, and I just want to give you a couple of pointers on that policy. Your team leader should be informed of any gifts that you give or are planning to give. Hopefully you'll do that before you give a gift. Now sometimes it's not going to happen that way. So for example, one time I was wearing a ball cap at one of our training sites, and a pastor came to me and asked me if he could have my ball cap, and it was just a ball cap, and I never wear a ball cap except when I'm on this mission trip, so I gave him the cap. Don't be afraid if it's something like that, a spur of the moment thing, but at the same time don't feel pressured or obligated beyond just the normal small gifts, tokens. Don't give large gifts. Just don't. It's safer for everyone. It will not create an attitude of dependencies. One of the things that you'll be asked most is for school fees. Unlike the U.S., where most of our children and grandchildren are attending public school and there aren't fees associated with that, it's not that way in Uganda, and there are fees. Now the fees are modest by our standards. We wouldn't think anything about it, but make sure that you talk with your team leaders, and it's relatively easy to set up a plan where you can give to Kuandaa, and Kuandaa can make sure that the child you're interested in supporting gets their fees paid. Another thing to think about is we would really prefer if gifts do not go directly to individuals, but through a pastor or leader of a local congregation. And that just makes it so there's not jealousy or any kind of bad feeling that comes up. You can leave a gift with a pastor who in a week or so after you've left town can give that gift to an individual in a more discreet way. There are also some concerns about purchasing souvenirs and tourist items, other things. Make sure that when, especially in like a marketplace, there'll probably be an opportunity for you to do some souvenir shopping in a sort of a craft market before we leave Uganda. Make sure you run purchases past one of our Ugandan friends. In most places we will go, there will be a tourist cost and a Ugandan cost. We'll go to some sightseeing places, and tourists, that's you and I, will pay more than a local person will pay. For those kinds of reasons, we want to make sure that we're being as faithful as we can be with our resources and with our relationships with others. Now, U.S. funds will need to be exchanged for Ugandan funds. Each team works out its own way to do this. More than likely, your team leader or the treasurer on your team will be responsible for exchanging funds into Ugandan currency, Ugandan shillings, and you can then exchange funds with your team leader. It could be that your team leader will say, tomorrow we're exchanging money, and then you'll have the opportunity to give your U.S. funds to the team leader and get it taken care of that way. Tipping is a big question that we get a lot because in America that's a big part of how we pay for service. There is not a tipping mindset in most of Africa. So tipping is not something we generally think about and we don't normally do. We want to encourage you to make sure you get all of your shots, which is almost every kind of shot you can get. Africa is a less developed part of the world than the U.S., and there are mosquitoes that carry malaria, and there are in some places sanitation problems and other kind of diseases and concerns. So be sure you get every shot that you can get. You've had another list, and I'm sure in the travel video you'll hear more about the shots. Just make sure you do that. And then here's one thing to keep in mind about our training events. Our training events will be held almost exclusively in villages, small villages. Church buildings will maybe not even exist in some spots. There is not going to be a toilet where you're at for most of the day. There will be a pit latrine, a pit that's just a pit. You'll need to squat over that hole and do your business that way. I tell you that now so you'll be prepared when it happens. You'll not be shocked. Maybe you want to do your best to take care of business early in the morning before we depart from our hotel. Just keep that in mind as we go along. Now, there are a couple other things I especially want to highlight for you. Phones have become pretty important, and they're pretty common. Cell phones are pretty common among Africans as well. But I want to encourage you to be sure to keep your phone close to yourself at all times. I know that I try whenever we're riding in one of our vans that we use to move from place to place. If I have my phone out, I try to keep the window of the van closed, because it's completely possible that a person walking along the street might reach into the window and snatch a phone right out of your hands. So just be cautious about that kind of thing. And there's one more warning I want to give you, and that has to do with invitations. If an African person solicits from you an invitation to come visit in the U.S., the implication often is, now not always, but often is, that not only can that person come and visit with you and stay with you, but that means you're probably going to cover their expenses to get here and to take care of them while they're here. And it doesn't take much for an African person to feel like they've been invited. So be careful when Pastor Moses says to you he would like to come visit you next summer. That sounds perfectly innocuous to you and I, and our response, our natural response might be, oh, that's a great idea. Or, oh, I would love to have you. Well, what we say is not what an African hears. What an African hears is, oh, I'm going. They want me to come. So just be careful. Choose your words wisely. Be careful how you approach things and how you talk to people. There are lots of other things I would like to cover with you, but you're going to find out a lot of it on your own. I love being in Africa. I feel like it's a second home to me, and I'm a pretty pampered, selfish, middle-aged white man. I'm also a picky eater. If I can handle it, you can too, and you're going to have a great time. We're looking forward to having you as part of our team. Thanks for listening, watching this video, and God bless you.